I think some nervy moments as well for Magnus, watching his team slightly struggle throughout most of the games, but eventually they did win 5.5 half. He decided, okay, they need a leader, and he has come in with white.
You mentioned you saw him play blitz last night. I saw him this morning at the beach playing football. So Magnus, he's having a great time in Albania, that's for sure. But let's see how he's getting on the board.
Yeah, he's really enjoying it here. Magnus, he's surrounded himself with a team of friends, which has kind of garnered this really positive team atmosphere. And we see him with white against Ravi Haria, who's a well-known French defense player. So right now we see a very thematic pawn structure. Let's go from the beginning maybe, quickly here, Fiona. So we did see the French and the advanced variation against the French. Magnus usually in this position brings his knight out, or even sometimes captures on d5. So to see him to play the advanced variation shows he's done some specific
Is the French Ravi's main opening?
It's pretty much his only opening as black against 1e4, and he's had a lot of success with it, Ravi. He kind of ducks and dives and chooses lots of different side variations to surprise his opponents. But Ravi, well prepared. He's actually released some books. He's a theoretician. Bishop d7, not necessarily one of black's main moves. Usually the black queen comes out to b6, or black can play a move like f6 early. Now he captures on d4 very early on. Usually this is frowned upon because white's knight gets a nice square. And okay, just a6. I've got to admit, it looks really slow. What black is doing here, a6 looks like a bit of a waiting move. A trade of bishops, this is the current position. And okay, normally it would favor white to trade off these dark squared bishops. White's dark squared bishop actually tends to be bad because it's stuck behind its central pawns. If you compare the remaining bishops, white's light squared bishop has a lot more potential than black's bishop. This black bishop is the problem piece, right, Fiona? But I don't know, trading pieces when black is slightly cramped goes against conventional wisdom, and still some ideas of the black queen getting active.
And look at Magnus's time. Magnus has been thinking a lot here. Do you think it's this a6 move that really caught him by surprise?
Yeah, I know Magnus is on record in interviews saying the older he gets, the more he relies on opening preparation and opening ideas. It feels like he's been slightly caught out here. This is Ravi Haria's comfort zone, his home ground. He's played the French literally since I first met him when he was, I don't know, 6, 7 years old. So Ravi really experienced in these structures, and it feels like black survived the opening in good shape. I'm expecting Magnus now to play a move such as pawn to a3 just to cut out any black queen moves, any active moves there. But how do you ever get rid of this knight without taking a big risk with g4? It's slightly uncomfortable, white's structure in the middle right now.
Absolutely. So we'll come back to Magnus and other matches from the Open in a short while. For now, let's move to the women's section, and maybe we can start by very quickly bringing up yesterday's results. Much like in the Open, there weren't too many doing on f1. Does this mean that Magnus maybe at some point wants to push the f-pawn, and that's the reason he's keeping the rook on f1?
I think definitely. He's trying to be flexible here. Putting rooks on the c-file, I guess black would do the same, and it's likely rooks will get traded, and Magnus is a very ambitious player. He doesn't want to grind out this endgame, even though he is pretty good at that too. Here, I think there's two plans involved. If black does nothing, if black kind of just waits, one could be to just retreat the bishop and kind of come round to c2. Let me try and draw that arrow. Round to c2 to eliminate this black knight. You cannot, of course, use the d3 square because knight takes pawn would be possible on d4. So he might come round with his bishop. Then his rook on e1 makes a bit of sense. But to make sense of the other rook, I think your point is very relevant here. White also has the option to play g4. You've got to time it well. He won't rush. But for example, after a trade of knights, he will play the move pawn to f4. And these rooks stand pretty well for now. Still vulnerable king, of course. So kind of you win some, you lose some. Pros and cons here for white. You have to weigh this up really accurately, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, the game has started rather slowly. Both players spending a lot of time, but it could blow into life at any given moment. So we'll keep a close eye on this one. I think for now we're going to move to a match that we haven't seen at all, and those are the title defenders from Novi Bor, Czech Republic. They are playing against Werder Bremen today, and on top board, Vincent.
We're assuming Magnus will defend this pawn, although the bar reacts. Ravi, somewhat surprisingly, opens the center, opens the king side, and this really justifies white's rook being in the center on e1. Magnus plays bishop to a4. He's saying, okay, there's a strategic trick here. If black takes on e5, white will be happy to capture on c6 and establish a beautiful knight on the e5 square, this outpost. I think strategically Magnus would win this one 99 times out of 100 just with such a beautiful piece against any opponent. Black, of course, blocks this. Good move from Ravi. The bishop drops back. And Magnus, I was going to say, he would love to take on e5 with a piece, but he can't right now. Knight takes pawn, drops the d4 pawn. Okay, he takes back with a pawn instead, and I think Ravi's got to be quite happy here, Fiona.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about this decision to break with f6 at first, but as you said, he's been playing the French all his life. The fact that there is a pawn now on e5 rather than a knight is a huge success. The one thing I'm concerned about is the time. 20 minutes for Ravi. We're only on move 17. King h8. What is King h8? Just, is that a very prophylactic move, stepping out of that diagonal?
King h8, I really hate. No, oh God, I'm so bad with the jokes today. Okay, King h8.
What was your joke?
I don't know, just a pun.
Just an insult.
Just a terrible pun. Hate, h8 is like hate in text
God.
language.
Oh God.
Anyway.
That was off.
That was pretty bad. King h8, this is, I'm going to try and save myself with some chess moves here. King h8, basically, I think Fiona, queen b6 is the move Ravi wants to play, but it would be a blunder here due to knight takes d5. The queen b6 kind of sets up knight d4, stares at the white king, but knight takes d5 would be a winning trick, a double attack due to this check. So he's just walking the king to safety.
It's
like
not
you said.
as prophylactic as I thought. It's just immediate. It's not. I thought it was a long-term prophylaxis, but it's an immediately preparing to then play maybe queen b6 on the next move.
I think so, and yeah, right now, could it be a case of another Fioni attack, a queen on d3 and a bishop on c2? Right now, it doesn't quite work because of the move knight to b4, but he could set this up, Magnus, in the next few turns. And yeah, there's also the option at some point of eliminating this knight.
Actually, we just saw Magnus make a move there on the camera. Did he go knight?
Knight to e2. It makes a lot of sense. The d4 outpost looks pretty juicy for one of the knights. I was going to say the other option would be taking this knight off the board. And here, the one reason you don't want to go knight to e2, okay, apart from the fact it drops e5, is because black will always be ready and willing to capture and sacrifice the exchange just to wreck white's kingside. And okay, you've given up just 1 point here technically, but this is horrible for the white king. So Magnus wants to get his knight round to e2 and into d4 without allowing this. So knight e2 first, and next he will threaten bishop takes knight, followed by installing a beautiful knight on d4, good knight versus bad bishop. So Ravi says, okay, before you go for good knight versus bad bishop, I'll save my knight. Knight h4, and okay, the moves are coming in now.
Very fast.
Yeah.
Magnus captures on h4. Ravi just recaptured, of course, as he would.
Okay.
And f4, and suddenly rook a to e1 has been vindicated.
Yeah, just a real foresight there from the world number one, as we're used to, of course. And watch out for this rook lift as well. Rook f3 to h3, not only almost trapping the black queen, but some severe threats against the h7 pawn in particular. Okay, the last 2 or 3 moves, maybe it's the clock situation, as you mentioned, Fiona. Ravi's been rushing slightly, and I think he's taken sub-optimal decisions.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a typical Magnus game. He looks in great shape to win his first game of the European Club Cup. We're, of course, not there just yet, but looking very promising on the board and on the clock. Let's move to Matthew Watts.
Ravi Haria, and okay. Oh, wow, this is really clever. I was going to say, maybe there are some tactics if rook to f3. For example, knight takes e5 here, Fiona. Wow, Ravi Haria set the sneakiest trap I've seen in a long time. This is attacking the rook. If the knight is captured, then rook takes rook, and suddenly a deflection at the very end. Rook takes bishop, and due to the fact the black queen is staring at the white rook on e1, black has won a pawn and has a big advantage. Note how after this tactic as well, rook to f3, knight takes e5, black can answer rook to h3, again with the same idea, rook takes c2, counter-attacking the white queen, and no time to take the black queen, and this would actually have been checkmate. Whoa, beautiful spot there from Ravi Haria, the young Englishman. Magnus therefore saved his bishop, not on a loose square anymore, So again, the threat of rook f3.
Very unfortunate actually for Ravi that he was playing Magnus, because I think there's so many opponents that would have fallen for this.
Yeah, myself included. If this was a blitz game, a rapid game, rook f3 is the most natural move. It looks like a killer threat, but knight takes e5 would be, just a heartbreaker there, a game changer. So bishop to b1, of course, spotted by Magnus, and again, rook f3, rook to h3, a winning idea. Ravi retreated the queen, sneaky again, setting up some traps along this diagonal. Knight takes e5 now threatened due to a pin. Magnus improved the queen, defending the e5 pawn. Black's queen doing a bit of a dance here, keeping an eye on the e1 rook, the recurring theme, rook f3, still not possible due to a capture. And Magnus moved that rook out the way, queen dropped back. Checkmate threatened. Pawn to h6, but now some holes. I'm looking at the Fioni attack. The white queen coming to h7.
But Magnus going for an even more direct approach.
Yeah, just trying to break the shelter in front of the black king, g4. Maybe hinting at f5 as well later in the future. d4. Wow, Magnus switching it up, slow playing it. Suddenly, I guess queen to d3, sometimes met by knight to b4, so he's just covering that square, taking it away. And after king to g8, g5. He's going for it. He's going for the black king.
Yeah, the black king is looking quite unhappy on g8. It stepped to the corner, it stepped back now. White might even at some point also play king h1, free up the g file, get a rook there. Ravi under a minute now. It's moved 26.
Oof, it's going to be hard to survive this, even if he had 1 hour, let alone 1 minute. Ravi Haria. Just to point out, pawn takes pawn will lead to checkmate after.
Ticking down, I mean, as we can see from the evaluation bar, the position is probably objectively lost already, but with that time situation, wow.
He's going in now, Ravi Haria. This looks like a gamble. Was this on Magnus's radar? Black sacrificing a knight. He's hoping that if the pawn takes the knight, he can give a check with Black's queen and some counterplay. I don't really see immediately what the idea is after White blocks. I think White will convert this material advantage eventually.
Does he just want to take on c1 and then...
White takes back, I guess. It does look a bit scary with the black queen coming in. The knight defends the rook. It's hanging together just about for Magnus Carlsen. I was going to say, though, this is what Ravi is hoping for after knight takes e5, but the problem is Magnus can finesse this. Instead of taking first, he can delay the capture first, trading off a set of rooks, maybe deflecting this black rook. Okay, the bishop's the one that takes, the black rook wants to stay on this file. But now, can he just simply take the knight? I think he can maybe just get away with this and block with the white queen.
And there doesn't seem to be...
There's no checks in this position for black, and no checks means bad news.
Yeah, I think we can stick around here. We might see a handshake very soon. I think knight takes e5. It was just desperation. The position was lost anyway. When time is ticking down, you need to make a move. So you try to muddy the waters. But yeah, as you predicted, the exchange on f1 happened. Magnus recaptures, and let's see. It's tricky, right? When you're playing, I think against anyone else, you're likely to at least play on until the time control, because I think in general that's what we're conditioned to do. When we have no time, we just sort of play on. He also does go for queen d2, but I think when you're Magnus, maybe there is this, thought that you don't want to play on for too long. Let's see. Do you think queen g6 will be played here?
I think queen g6. Magnus is spoiled for choice. If he wants to be super safe, he can just move the bishop somewhere into the center to any protected square. Bushbill there. Magnus making a bit of a face. And yeah, I can't blame Ravi for playing on. Might as well enjoy the moment. How often do you get to play against Magnus Carlsen in a classical game? And okay, he's about to make a move. He
looks like a guy, though, who's about to deliver the killer blows soon.
Yeah, just double checking that everything's protected, that no pieces hang or anything. And we will update you with how that game, that Raunax had 1e1, how it ended. Okay, he doesn't play queen to g6. It looks like he played bishop to g6, just closing the net around the black king. And with the white queen, this also looks decisive.
If I go pawn grabbing on b2, am I getting mated by force? I imagine so.
I think so. Just no way to guard against this check on f7, forcing the king into the corner, and then a checkmate with the white queen on f8. Black's queen just, I mean, there's literally only one check, and that's the check in a1 that will not save. Get the handshake, takes his first win of the European Club Cup.
Okay, congratulations to Magnus Carlsen, Offerspiel taking a 2-0 lead.